How does the sequel to such a phenomenally successful movie fail this hard? Is it concerning? Does it actually make sense? I think we'll get all into the reasons why Joker Folie Adieu may not be doing so well at all on today's episode. It is, of course, still horror season, spooky season. There's plenty of discussion in that regard to be had on today's show as well. Jeannine, you're doing your whole month of Halloween watches and reviews. That's very exciting. I enjoy seeing them every single day. I've got a little bit fancy in the last couple of weeks as well. Since the last episode of this show, Fun and Games, of course, to close us out. Welcome back to the madness. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Monday Madness with Morgan and the Machine.
Hello.
Are we feeling okay today, Jeannine? I think so, generally.
Yes, generally feeling pretty good. It's spooky season, so I'm always in a good mood.
Yes, as you should be, as would be unusual to some people in the world. You know, it becomes October, everything gets darker, everything gets gloomier.
I love it.
Horror is is everywhere in pop culture, and you're the one dancing about, going, "Happy times are here again," and so am I. To be honest with you, at this time of year, I enjoy
Yeah.
nice, consistent watching of any such horror movie in this particular month. It only feels more right than it does at any other point during the year,
Yeah.
which makes sense, obviously, and doesn't stop us obviously from watching these movies consistently throughout the year. I mean, on Christmas Day, I could happily put The Omen on and it'd be absolutely fine. You know, it
Yeah.
might be a bit weird.
It
Might be a bit
weird, but
unusual.
as horror fans, we watch these movies all the time, so
We
we don't need
certainly
an
do.
occasion, but it helps.
Yeah, but I'm quite interested to begin our main discussion today, and we're obviously not doing that yet. But it's an interesting thing that has happened with Joker 2. I think really, I envisioned it making somewhat similar amounts of money that the first one did. I mean, the
Yeah,
first one was
yeah,
ridiculously popular, and it has just fallen flat on its face.
yeah.
Um, Rather strangely so. Although, in thinking about it, in having small conversations that we've had before this episode, obviously, on it, I think there's elements that have surrounded it. There's elements of other movies that are currently out at the minute that are just
Mhm.
taking focus, and have taken focus away, and whether it's a marketing thing, a release schedule thing, or anything like that, has just all worked against the success of that movie, um, rather strangely. And what I think is most interesting about the discussion we're going to have is that neither of us have even seen the movie,
No.
yet we can still, I think, recognize why this has happened to it from a purely from reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the movie whatsoever, because we can't speak to the quality of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be very, very interesting to get into. However, I will ask the question first, Jeannine of Sup, Jeannine.
We have some things up, as you alluded
You do.
to in the opening. Yeah, I've been watching something spooky every day this month to celebrate spooky season. So it's a mix of horror I've seen, obviously familiar, comfortable spooky season horror, but also
Oh yeah.
some new things, whether I get recommendations from friends or followers, because I share this kind of my journey of what I'm watching every night on my TikTok, also doing reviews on everything I watch because, I want to do more reviews. I feel like people like when I do reviews. So I've been trying and to kind of just hone my skills at doing that kind of format of movie talk. And I
Yeah.
feel like doing a review every day of everything I'm watching is really helping me, improve with that and get better with that, as I feel like,
Well, that's
you
good.
know and TikTok generally, it kind of wants you to veer in a specific lane.
Mm,
And I was kind of doing a lot of everything. So, I think movies are generally the main thing I talk about. And so I want to kind of hone in on something specific. And I like reviewing film. So it has been fun doing these reviews every day. But yeah, I've been watching a mix of new and old things. And something new I actually watched was Psycho 2.
Psycho 2. Interesting.
Yes. I believe it's from 1983, so 22 years after the original film. Yeah, it sees Norman Bates getting out of the institution that he was locked away in the first film. And we even have Vera Miles coming back as Lila Crane, well, now Lila Loomis. So,
Mm.
she kind of, just jumped on that train after, the loss of her sister. And,
As is only right,
yes,
I
I
mean,
mean,
why not?
yes, I mean, she's not there to claim him, and they've been through a lot together with this whole
Mm,
situation, so trauma bonding and all of that, I suppose. So it was really cool to see her come back as well, and she almost becomes this villain character in terms of,
right.
how Norman is and how she is, because Norman, he's seemingly just trying to get on with his life, grow past this influence and hold that his mother has on him. He's trying to be a better person. But she can't see him beyond that. She sees him as the man who
Yeah.
killed her sister and nothing more, and she refuses to allow herself to see him as more. So it's a really interesting kind of characterization switch between these two characters. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and just seeing her come back, I was like, oh, okay, because I vaguely known a bit about Psycho 2, but not that I didn't even think I knew that she came back.
See,
Um,
I've never seen Psycho 2, any of the
yeah.
Psycho sequels. I think is the 4 of them, or 4
Yes.
movies
So
total.
yeah, so I was talking with my friend about them, and he was telling me about 4, and I think I just always thought 4 was 2. It's where he calls into a radio show and ends up kind of relaying everything that happened,
Right,
um,
okay.
in the first film, and telling kind of his story and stuff, and I think there's flashbacks of younger him, played by Henry Thomas, and all of
Oh,
that kinda thing, and showing his relationship with his mother, and I think Olivia Hussey plays his mother. And
okay.
when my friend was kind of telling me about that and I looked it up, I was like, "Oh, I think I thought this was 2 because I remember elements of 4, so I feel like I've seen 4, and I
Mm,
think I always in my
interesting.
mind just thought it was 2. Um, so in seeing 2, I realized, no, I've never seen this.
See, no,
Um,
I've hardly seen anything. I've
yeah,
barely seen images of the Psycho sequels, to be honest with you, and I'm a big fan of Psycho. I think the Psycho's a wonderful,
yeah,
wonderful movie.
yes.
Rather obvious thing to say, but I
Yeah,
really
no, just
do
an incredibly well done film. But
think it
this one
is.
but this one finds a really interesting way to kinda continue that story. So it's him getting out of the institution, he's in the courthouse, they're telling him, "You're released." Here comes Lila Crane like, "No, you can't
Mm,
let him go, I have a petition to lock him away."
a
Ugh.
petition
Like, yes, and she's very upset about it, right?
signed by 53 people
Yes,
that
and
says he must be
he's
in prison.
terrible. Yes. So he's, trying to rehabilitate himself. He moves back home. Robert Loggia is like a doctor, like therapist friend who's trying to
Is
help
he
him kind
now?
of get back on his feet. He gets a job at a diner where he meets this young girl played by Meg Tilly. And
Mm,
she has a falling out with her boyfriend who kicks her out of their place that they're staying. So he invites her to live with him at his home at, Bates. So he moves back there. Um,
it's a real issue for me here that he moves back into the
yeah.
motel. Like, why is he doing that to himself? If he's
Yes.
gone 22 years of rehabilitation and institutionalization, right? And he's free now. He wants to get on with his life. Surely the worst possible thing he could do
Yes, so we
is
do have
move back
characters
there.
tell him that it's the word like, Robert Loge is telling him, "I don't know if this is a good idea, it might bring back these traumas," like, he's like, "No, I think I'll be okay," and that whole kinda thing. So, he does have people warning him against staying there, but he's determined. And then he has a new guy, there's somebody who's been running the motel, a sloppy man, I can't remember the actor's name. He was the obnoxious cop who kept getting in, John McClane's way in Die Hard 2. And he was on that cheap show, NYPD Blue, I can't remember his name.
No, I
Um,
know the face of the person
yes,
you mean.
so
Yeah.
he's like this sloppy man who's been running the motel, letting people kinda do drugs at the motel and this whole kinda thing. So he ends up kind of having this contentious relationship with Norman, um, and as he's kind of staying at the home and Meg Tilly's living there with him,
Strange
strange
things
things
start
start happening. He thinks he's finding notes from his mother, seemingly he's getting weird phone calls he thinks is from his mother, and he's starting to kind of lose it a little bit. Um,
Mm.
and, people end up kind of dying around him, and he's wondering, like, "Is it me? Is it mother? Is she really there?" And so things are happening that are making him kind of feel like maybe he's not okay. Ultimately, some bigger things are revealed in terms of what is actually happening, and there's some interesting twists and turns in there. Meg Tilly forms this really close bond with him, so she's kind of, like, not allowing the talk and whispers about who Norman is and what he did affect how she feels about him, because she ends up really kind of starting to care for him. So,
Well, I think
yeah,
that's always been the case with Norman Bates, though, hasn't it? Right? I mean, like
yes, so
he's
he's very vulnerable and sympathetic here. You really feel for him, you want good for him, and you just kind of are really curious. There's a mystery element to it, like, what is actually going on here? Like,
yeah.
is he actually losing his mind, or is there something actually going on?
But like
So,
even after the first movie, obviously, I've only seen the first movie. That he is a sympathetic villain because of the nature of him.
yeah,
Like he does horrible things. He is a murderer,
yeah, but he's
but
not
he
well,
is
yeah,
he's not a well person. He's an understandably damaged
yeah,
individual, and that's the sympathetic side of him. So it's good to see that the sequels, because I have in recent years, I think there has been somewhat reevaluation of the Psycho sequels because it seemed to always be, you just there's Psycho 1960, and there was things that came later, but do we acknowledge them?
yeah,
And I think in recent years there's been a good um Blu-ray box set of them all.
mm,
Obviously I would know that, look at me and
yes,
collecting and all that sort of stuff.
yeah,
Um that gives them certain reappraisal, and it
mhm.
seems that's kind of what you're doing here. It seems Psycho 2 is a very worthwhile sequel.
Yeah, it finds a really interesting way to, bring back that story. It feels organic to where these characters would be in this time. I think the twists that come make sense to how certain characters would feel. They do kind of throw this big twist in there that feels like they just kind of threw it in there.
Mm,
But ultimately, I think how they make it play out adds a little interesting element. So I am curious to watch 3
and
and
then
then kind of rewatch 4, because when I saw clips of what 4 was, I'm like, I totally remember kind of watching this as a kid at home
mm,
thinking it was just 2, because I had no concept of, a franchise and things like that. I think I went at the time I saw it as a kid. So, but I remember Olivia Hussey, I remember Henry Thomas, I remember this kind
okay.
of flashback story, and it's him relaying the story to somebody as he's calling into this late night radio show or whatever. So I remember those elements of it. So I know I've seen it, but just I think when I was a little kid. So I would love to, this movie actually made me kind of want to explore those sequels. And I think, Anthony Perkins does an amazing job just kind of sliding back into this character after so long. He still
Yeah.
feels like that same character. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed Psycho 2. It was a nice surprise.
I mean, as is sometimes the case, it takes, you acknowledging the worthwhile nature of a movie of that kind for me to be, to have the motivation to go and then watch it.
Yeah. Yes, and I watched the first one just before, so I could kind of,
Okay.
see them together. So I think, when I was talking to my friend about it, because he was recommending that I watch Psycho 2, and when he was, after I had watched it and we were kind of talking about it, there were things that he felt like didn't feel organic to the characters. But I was like, well, have to watch the first one. So since I watched them back to back, I was able to kind of bring up points with the characters that made sense to them now,
Wait,
22 years later.
who somebody has watched the second one without watching the first one? Is that
No,
what you've just
they watched the first one, but they didn't watch it together. But since I had just watched
Oh,
them
okay.
back to back, I was
Oh,
able
it
to
was
he was like
clearer.
he's like, "I don't like that this character was like this and this and this and this." And I'm like, "Well, no. In watching the first one, it makes sense that this character would be like this and this and this and this because,
I see, I see.
of how she was." So we were talking about Lila. He didn't like
Yeah.
something with her characterization. He didn't feel like it played well, or that he didn't like seeing her like that. And I said, "Well, having just watched the first one, I can tell you she was very much this resolute, determined,
Mm,
kind of, I'm gonna solve this mystery. I'm gonna do what I
yeah,
want. This man is evil kind of character." She was already kind of in that direction. So having 22 years to stew and not see justice really, in
yeah,
her mind, she would be this way in this 22 years later film. So, having that fresh perspective, I was able to kind of show that to my friend. So I think it makes sense, if you are going to watch it, do watch the first one just before.
okay.
I
I mean,
think it'll
that
help
that
enhance.
that can, never be a wrong thing to do, can it? It's been
Yes,
ages since I've
yes.
watched Psycho, and it's obviously I
Yeah, so
mean,
you could think you could just go off of it and be like, "Oh, I know what happens. I'm gonna watch the second one." Easy to
yeah.
do, but I think it helped me see things in the characters, particularly the returning characters, going into this years later film that helped me kind of, yeah, these characters really do feel like this is where they would be, and this is how they would feel all these years later. So,
I mean, it's not as weird as it sounds, it's not a movie I like rewatching movies of that sort of caliber, I
mhm,
suppose, to me doesn't come frequently at all. I am always somebody who wants to watch something they haven't seen before.
yeah,
Like that's why I buy so many movies because
yeah,
I and ones that I have not seen because I like watching new old movies,
yeah,
right? I don't I know Psycho. I feel like I know Psycho. Do I need to rewatch Psycho? Yes, it's very, very, very good,
yeah,
obviously. But maybe in my mind somewhere, I would rather watch something not as quote unquote great,
yeah,
but at least it's new, at least it's something different, and I'm constantly
yeah,
going like that and that and that. Maybe I should try and balance that out a bit more and actually go and revisit a movie like that. I mean, it's such
yeah,
an obvious big name movie, isn't it? But
yeah.
there's a reason it is that, and there's a reason it's consistently so well revered. Um,
Yeah, and how it ends, it makes sense that you'd want to kind of think about where these characters would be,
yeah, I
going forward.
suppose so.
So it gives you that, I think. I think it's a really smart way to continue the story. It makes sense to the characters, for sure. So I found
Interesting.
myself really enjoying Psycho too. So
Interesting, interesting.
yeah.
Well, I know we watched actually. We won't spend too long on this, but I know we watched one of the same movies this past week, actually, for your horror watch
Oh
along
yeah, I
every
saw
day
you
situation.
copying me. Yes.
I did a little bit of a copy because I owned the movie and thought, well, I haven't seen that in a few years. It's a weird movie. Why not stick that on one night? Alice, Sweet Alice, 1976. It's a
Yeah, that was a new one for
grim,
me as well
horrible thing,
too.
isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, no, that was a first time watch for me too.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I think I was just, kind of scrolling through, just the horror section of whatever streaming service, and I saw it. I was like, "This is one I've been wanting to see and I haven't seen." I like that stark image of that
Mm,
painted clear mask is always very creepy. I this one is one that has a good mystery. I love slashers that have that kind of
mm.
mystery element to them.
Well,
Um,
that's what it is. It's predominantly a mystery. There's not much
yeah,
slasher killing that actually goes on in it, is it? It is what is actually going on with that
yeah,
original kill that's the
yeah,
predominant story of the whole thing.
yeah,
But it's a nasty, nasty movie at
yeah,
times. Alice, Sweet Alice. It is a perfect people are terrible mid-70s horror movie
yeah, and
as
it's
well.
like yes, and like, I feel like when, I said in my review, when, horror films kind of try to throw religion in there, it can feel a bit
Mm,
heavy-handed, but I think this actually works really well with the story that they were crafting and telling, um, so it didn't feel like a forced element, it felt
yeah.
wholly like a part of the storytelling having this religious element in there, so
Yeah, and family breakdown and
mhm.
jealousy, and
Yeah, and, like, divorced parents and that kinda thing,
yeah,
especially in the '60s when it's set, that's
mm,
not a kind of
early
common,
60s.
normal thing. Yeah. So
It's it's a really unsettling movie for being a movie that isn't. It's not massively gory. It doesn't make you squeamish. It's nothing like that. But it's that real, often indescribable quality that kind of late. Oh, I suppose throughout the 70s, American horror movies
yeah.
do tend to have the better ones that just is able to get underneath your skin, squirm around a bit, and go, "This is uncomfortable, isn't it? This is
Yes.
very
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
there
Look at
was
all
a lot
these
of
things that are
uncomfortable
going on."
stuff. Yes, and I love the struggle of a kind of evil kid movie with the parents, like, really
Mm,
struggling to, believe that their child could do this. They have a hard time facing it, things like The Bad Seed. Um,
yeah.
what else am I thinking of? The Omen,
Well,
where
The
a
Omen
parent
to an extent, yeah,
Ye
because obviously Lee Remick doesn't think Damien's capable of this, but
yes,
Gregory Peck certainly does.
exactly, but it's still this, like, pain of, like, "Oh my gosh, my child, what am I gonna have to do about my child being this thing?" and this struggle there.
Yeah.
Because I also, I watched Village of the Damned because me and,
Very
um
nice.
yes, me and some my, friends were talking about the Christopher Reeve documentary, and so I
Ah.
just wanted to see that man's face, so I watched the Village of the Damned, the remake one with
Oh,
him.
the remake, the
Yes.
right, I see, yes.
Yes, and, like, I was kind of missing that parental struggle from a lot of the characters. Like, as soon as the kids started acting weird, it was literally like, "Fuck them kids." Like, Christopher Reeve was already, like, done. So, like, of course, obviously, as a viewer, you are thinking like them, like, "F them kids," like,
Mm,
yeah. But I like when there's that tension struggle of a parent really having to come to terms with their kid that they raise,
yeah.
that they love being this evil thing that they can't control. So I
No, I
wanted
haven't
more
seen
of
the
that.
remake.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the 1961. So,
Oh,
yeah.
have you it has been an episode of the main show, perhaps it was not a you episode
No, I don't believe
of
it
It's
was
a
a me
Wonderful
episode. I
Podcast,
don't I
the
don't
main
think it
show.
I
I would
don't
I
think
would
it was a
like
me.
I would like you to watch that one just so you can determine
Yes.
whether Christopher Reeve was doing his best George Sanders impression, as it is.
Oh,
George
George
Sanders is the lead
Sanders.
of
Oh,
A
okay. Well,
Village of the
I like
Damned.
George Sanders. So, yes, I just
Everybody
wanted
likes George
yeah, George
Sanders.
Sanders. Yes. Well, because yes, I just wanted to see Christopher Reeve's face, and yes, he was in that. But yes, like I liked that the mother was having this struggle, like not even being able to believe her sister when her sister thought it was her daughter and this whole kind of thing. Um, it just adds more
Mm,
tension and kind of human emotion and groundedness to stories like that. So I liked
yeah.
that element as well with the mother really trying to understand what's happening and how she can trust, and it puts so much doubt in you as a parent, like, where did I go wrong as well? So I like the realness of those kinds of emotions that come up when you have, like, a creepy kid movie. So that's an element I think
Unflinching, right? It
yes. So I liked that
doesn't
that was
hide
a
away,
strong element in Alice, Sweet Alice, so
doesn't wanna shy away,
yeah.
puts things in really plain imagery, really plain
Yeah,
fact
mhm.
out there, doesn't beat around the bush with
Yeah,
anything, these kind of movies.
yeah,
If a parent and child hate each other, that's perfectly fine to have in your movie, and you
yeah,
just feel like that's less and less maybe the case
yeah,
in the majority of movies that you get now. Obviously it's still there in certain
yeah,
circumstances, but whether we want to present a certain image, 70s horror movies aren't interested in doing that at all.
yeah.
They are incredibly pessimistic,
Yes.
and for horror movies that tends to be a very good thing. I
Yeah.
think it tends to be a very, very effective thing. um Something else I did do though, which I will mention before we get into
Yes.
our main discussion, was I went to the theatre.
Oh, the
And I mean, like,
theater.
the actual
The
theatre, the
theater.
theatre,
The
as we like to
theater.
say.
Mhm,
Yes,
mhm.
or pronounce it like that, which I've not been to the theatre in a long many years. Um, so that it was very exciting. You know,
Nice.
you
Mhm.
get all
Yeah.
fancy. You
Mhm.
put your nice clothes on, don't you? You go for a
Yeah.
meal beforehand, and you go
Mhm.
to the theatre, and we watched the Book of Mormon,
Okay.
which obviously isn't that fancy at all. As a, it's not like going watching Shakespeare or something
Yes, or
like that, is it?
Phantom of the
It's
Opera or something.
Phantom of the Opera. It's a ridiculous musical. And I don't even like South Park, but it's obviously from the South Park people.
Yeah.
Um, I found it very, very funny, actually,
Oh,
though. I found
nice.
it really funny, really entertaining, great songs.
Okay.
Um, a little, I mean, I knew absolutely nothing about it before going in. I knew it was a satire about Mormons, right? That's what I knew about it.
Mhm.
I didn't quite know how crass and vulgar it was, and it because it is incredibly,
Yes.
boundary pushing in
Yes,
terms
I've
of
never seen it, but I definitely have heard that.
yeah, it's vulgarity. It's also, I say this with love in my heart. It's one of the gayest musicals you could ever watch as well. I think
Mhm.
it very much plays on maybe certain stereotypes about
Okay.
Mormon men
Okay.
being incredibly flamboyant and welcoming and everything like
Yeah.
that. Playing on the stereotypes of everybody. I mean, there is some there's some dark things going on in that show, but really treated very well, I think, with a lot of humor and
Yeah.
a genuine message behind it. But no, it was wonderfully performed
Oh,
at
nice.
the Palace Theatre in Manchester. It was very nice full
Good
theatre.
production. Okay.
Really, really great production. Nice to go to the theatre. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a cheap thing to do to go to the theatre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it is nice to do, and I haven't
Yeah.
been in a long time, and have always enjoyed the idea of going.
Yes.
Um, because it feels like this sort of fancy night out. Although I will say, and here's where complaints come in, nothing to do with the theatre itself, nothing to do with the production, nothing to do with the show. I genuinely thought it was amazing as an actual
Yeah.
musical theatre production. People's behaviour in the theatre is exactly the same as people's behaviour in the movie theatre or
Oh,
cinema, whatever you want to
no.
call it. I like, maybe this is me in my uppity way. I like to view the theatre as a certain classy affair,
Yes.
and you go and you want to get nicely dressed
Dressed
for the
up and
theatre. And I
yeah.
don't like the fact that I think there should be a dress code for the theatre, and I mean that. I'm not even joking. I do not believe you should be able to go to the theatre in a
Some
t-shirt and
jeans.
jeans.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's a
No, I get that.
certain,
I get that. Yes.
like, aura about it, and I'm not meaning to, like, it
Be a
should be
snob.
welcoming to everybody.
No.
Of course
Yeah,
it should be
yes,
welcoming
yeah.
to everybody. Of course everybody should be able to go to the theatre, but surely there has to be a certain balance. Why are we allowing food and snacks in the actual theatre itself? Like, that's
Mm.
surely that's what the intermission's for. Like,
Yes,
that's why
'cause
you have
I
an
feel like that
intermission,
would
go
be
and get your snacks.
distracting, make a lot of
It's
noise, somebody
well,
slurping on a soda. Mhm.
it was incredibly distracting, all the rustly
Yeah.
sweets and things like that. It's
Mhm.
incredibly distracting. Um, that's why you have intermissions, refreshment. You get there
Yeah.
very, very early, don't you? So you can go and have drinks
Yeah.
and food beforehand. That's why there's bars and little, you can buy food at the
Exactly,
theatre.
yes.
Um, I think it should be a certain grander experience than
Yes.
maybe the
Not
truth
as
of it
casual, yeah.
actually is. And I think we're still gonna treat it when we go to the theater as a
A
fancy
fancy
affair,
affair. Yeah. Mhm.
because I like the idea of that. I
Yes.
just
No, I do
I
too.
really
Yeah.
do. Um, and like I said, I don't want it to come across as snobbish or anything like that. Absolutely, everybody should be able to go to the theatre. The problem with not everybody being able to go to the theatre is the fact that it is expensive. It's not that there is some sort of, you know, policy in place where you're not going to be allowed wearing those shoes in, even though sometimes, I mean, there's people have dress codes in certain areas, right? Like, you can't
Yeah.
go to certain bars wearing trainers, sneakers. You have to wear
Yes.
shoes. Like,
Yeah.
it can be the same
Exactly,
in
at the
somewhere like
theater.
this.
Mhm. Yeah.
And also 10 minutes before the end, right in the middle of a nice big musical number, there were two people who started arguing in the block
Oh,
over,
no.
because one of them couldn't hear, and it got very, very loud and very disturbing, and security had to come in, and then they were still kicking off with each other when the production ended and everybody was walking out, and it
Oh
was
my
ridiculous. And
gosh.
I just
Complain
feel
about not
like,
being able to hear, but then being super loud.
exactly, you're in the theater. What do you mean? For one
Yeah.
thing, what do you mean you can't hear? It's literally the focus of the entire thing. The
Yeah.
theater itself is built so that everybody can hear. That's the
Here, yeah.
acoustics of a theater. That's the architecture of a certain place like
Yes.
that. And also, why are you focusing on anything else? Why are you focusing on another person
Yes, as opposed to what's
when you're
happening on the
there
stage.
watching people
Mhm.
perform? I mean, credit to them, they didn't, they definitely would have heard what was going
Oh,
on
yes,
stage,
but they kept going and
but they
yeah,
kept going, they kept performing, they didn't
good.
break. It was very, very, very professional, very commendable from
Yes.
the performers there. But I thought that was ridiculous as
Yes,
well.
drama.
Like, again, to sound even more snobbish than I did before, why are we letting these kind of people in?
Like, they're letting this riff-raff.
The riffraff, away with it. But I also think this in the cinema. Why are we letting groups of 14-year-olds into movies
R-rated
that are just going to
movies.
cause? I just
Yes.
don't see
It's
why
like,
why we allow it.
why aren't you hanging out at a park? Why are you hanging out in here on your phone talking, having full-on conversation? Like, why did you choose a theater, a quiet, dark theater to do this in? Like,
There should be behavior. There should be. I'm sorry. I know it's a bit strict, but there should be behavioral things and kind of decorum
yeah,
policy in place. I think that if you break, it's just like, no, sorry, bye. There's a reason you're here.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. Maybe I am a snob for thinking that. Do let me know what you think about that in the comments or on the socials and that kind of stuff. Are you in my mindset of add add a decorum to the experience of going somewhere like that. Like, you wouldn't go to a classical music concert in a pair of shorts, would you?
No.
So
Why
is
would
it
you
is
do
it not
that?
the same sort of
Yeah.
thing? Like, I don't think there was anybody in a pair of shorts, but
I would hope not.
casual t-shirt and jeans and trainers. I'm just like, you're at the theatre, mate. Like, what are you doing?
Do
Like,
people
do
even
you
wear
not?
shorts over there? It's
Oh,
always
people
so
will. Oh,
cold.
yes. All the time, people wear shorts. These insane people that wear shorts in January
Oh
and
my
things like this.
god.
Oh, it does happen. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a different mindset. There was certainly
Different
plenty of people
class.
there that were dressed up.
Yeah.
Not different class. I don't want to bring it into it. I don't want to bring a issue into it. It's not a class issue. It's a mindset issue.
Yes. No, I think if I was going to the theater, I would want to dress up as well. So,
You would.
yes.
You would. You know, it feels nice to do that. I
Yes.
think it
It makes
feels
it more of
nice
an
to do that.
experience, more of a treat, something you don't
Yeah,
do very often, so you wanna make it special. No, I get that.
yeah. And it did. But yeah, I would implore anybody that hasn't to go and see that show. Go and see the Book of Mormon. I
Hey.
think it's an awful lot of fun. Um, and you as with any good musical, I suppose you come out wanting to sing the songs, right?
Yeah.
And they get stuck in your head. But yeah. Anyway, speaking of any good musicals or maybe
Mhm.
not so good
Good
musicals, we don't know.
musicals. Yeah.
As we move into our Let's Talk for today, Jeannine, we'll put it on the screen for, of course, people watching on the It's Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel today. Why did Joker 2, Joker Folie Adieu, financially fail? We're not using the word "this movie bombed, screamed,"
Yeah.
we pull a weird face on the thumbnail
Yeah.
because we're not that.
You
We
know.
believe in certain decorum. We're not that. We're not
Yes.
that level of classlessness here. It's all about class, really, with me, isn't it? Today, it's all about showing a certain
Yes. Level of
attitude.
sophistication.
Um,
Yes.
but the fact of the matter is that movie has, at this point, after a couple of weeks, a few weeks, financially failed.
Yes.
Certainly, given what the first movie did, which was over 1 billion. I think
$1 billion.
1.2 billion or something like that.
Yes,
Ridiculous
something
amount of
crazy
money.
like that. And yeah, this one I think, had a $200 million budget, on top of its
Why?
budget for promotion, so I think, maybe like 300 million total.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for it to not even really be close to making any of that back. Yeah, as you mentioned, neither of us have seen this film, so we're going into this kind of really just, with an analytical perspective.
I think we
You know
should maybe say it doesn't have the best word of mouth quality wise.
yes, because I think it's even breaking records for the biggest, like, second week drop of any
Mm,
movie, like, it's even beaten, I think, the Marvels in that regard, and the Marvels did not
right.
do well at all. Um, so
And that sort of stuff does come from word of mouth. That's not because there's been another massive release that has come
yeah.
out. I mean, there's been the Wild Robot, that DreamWorks
Yes, but
movie,
also,
which
people loved the, alliteration and, coincidence of Terrifier 3, so they could write their articles that there's a new clown in town and talk about how Terrifier 3 has dethroned Joker. Um
I yes, I genuinely think, and I know a movie like that, say a movie even like The Substance, which is still going
Yeah.
in cinemas, aren't on the same scale
Mhm.
as Joker 2 is and was, and in terms of this is a big tent pole kind of movie.
Yeah.
I do think it is a significant factor, though, that this movie has been released in October around a couple of well, one in the substance, very good word of mouth horror
Mhm.
movie, and one in Terrifier 3, very, very cult favorite now horror movie
Yeah.
that people will go and watch, and then probably those same people will go and watch it 4 times. You
Yes,
know,
and
it might not
now
have the scope of
yeah,
people, but it is stunningly successful in what it's doing and is taking up all of every outlets, all of every movie speakers, you know, area.
yeah,
It's taking up all that space because everybody's looking at pictures of Art the Clown
yeah,
and a hell of a lot of gore. And no matter if you even like that or not, it's what you're seeing because it's
yeah,
being pumped into you.
yes,
Like The
and this one
Substance was. No,
yeah,
that's
right.
it. Well, it was.
Uh, and I'm led to believe that this, the first film, I've seen the first 2 Terrifier films. The first one was just kind of purely for the spectacle of gore and this
Yeah.
crazy character just doing crazy things, and didn't really have a strong inherent story. It was literally just kind of set pieces for gore, and for Art to kinda just go crazy. Um, the second one actually did kind of set up characters, final girl, and a whole kind of story aspect, that ties these characters to Art on a deeper level, like almost this supernatural kind of fantasy kind of thing happening in the second one. And they don't really flesh that out. They don't really tell you really what that connection means. So
Yeah.
going into the third one, I'm led to believe the third one is very story heavy. So yes, Art is doing these crazy things and has his little set pieces of insanity and brutal murdering. But there's also a really strong story element that continues from the second film. So that is also, I think, giving that film a boost because they're getting, you know, a mix of the first and second films, which people really ended up enjoying as this cult thing.
It
Um,
really is an example, a prime example in slowly building something super successful. Because look at how the second one last year did really well, and
yes.
this one is doing even better. Is taking all the
Yes.
focus away from Joker 2, away from this bigger movie that with a slightly poor word of mouth and falling, I think, really at a bad time. Like, why? This movie should be released November, next month. You're away from horror then. You're away from horror because you know in October what do people want to see. We spoke about it before. People want to go and watch horror movies.
Yeah.
Even if they don't like horror movies a lot,
Yes, it's just the vibe
October
of
feels
this
like that
season.
time.
Yes, I mean, and then with Smile 2 coming out as well, that's also gonna be pulling
Exactly.
even more from it. So it's surrounded by all these really solid horror films. Strange Darling had a really interesting run as
Yeah.
well.
And as I
So
said, The Wild Robot, I mean, let's not discount that
yes,
as well.
people are talking about how great that film is in terms of the storytelling, how emotional it is, and all of that thing. So,
Not a
um
horror movie by any stretch of the
no, but
imagination,
it
but
it it
a
has really
family
strong
animated movie.
yes, and it has really strong legs in terms of people really enjoying the story of it and the voice work and everything. So, that film having a really good word of mouth against Joker's really bad word of mouth, is not doing that film any favors really. On top of its just inflated insane budget. I mean, you
Mm,
talked about growing with Terrifier. Um, I think the first film only had like a five-figure budget.
yeah.
Moving
Joker
in
1 was a prime example of phenomenal word of mouth and
yeah,
growth along many, many
yes,
weeks.
yeah,
It made 1.2 billion over 3 months, not
yeah,
over 3 weeks, you know,
yeah,
like a lot of billion-dollar movies do.
yeah,
They make it in the first few weeks and then gradually go down.
yeah,
That
when more
stayed
things come
so
out.
level
Yeah,
all the time,
yes.
um, which was great for that because it was something a little bit different, because it
Mhm.
spoke to certain people in certain ways,
And it also was
and
tied to a really popular character and IP.
well,
Um,
obviously,
yeah,
yeah, but it was the most, different version of the
Yes, but
Joker of
still I
Batman
think
of Gotham
having
than you've ever seen,
yes, but I
right?
think still having that tie-in also helped it as well, being set in that world that everybody knows and loves and,
Of course.
it's setting itself apart by doing something different with this very familiar character that we've seen so many iterations of. I think that pushed it as well. But then, yeah, going into this one, I'm hearing that the characterization is completely different. Um it doesn't feel like it's a solid continuation of the story and the characters that we got in the first film. Um,
Do we also feel maybe that obviously, I think we've been told for a long time that Joker 2 is a musical.
yes.
However, it did not, exactly focus in on the fact it was a musical in its trailers, in its marketing, in any of that sense. We've just kind of heard it be said that it is a musical, and we had that whole discussion
Yeah.
quite a while ago now, I suppose, of Lady Gaga
Mu
even saying, "No, it's not a musical," and then describing exactly what a musical was.
Yes, and I think a lot of people went into it not realizing it was a musical, but I feel like amongst other films that were wholly definitely musicals, they hit it more than I think Joker 2 did. I think it put it out there,
Possibly.
in a lot of the imagery, we actually see the character singing in the trailer, um,
Well, yeah, that's true.
dancing and sweeping scenes, and even when it was first announced it was
Mm,
said that it was gonna be a musical. But you look at something like Mean Girls and The Color Purple, and those trailers didn't
yeah.
really focus too much on that aspect, so people went to go see those movies and not expecting thinking they were just remakes, and when people burst into song, they were very confused.
But do
Um,
you think if this had really emphasized its musical quality, would musical people have been more inclined to go and see it rather than just say people
Joker
that are
1 fans.
Joker 1 fans? Exactly. You know,
I mean,
that
maybe.
a lot of people obviously went and watched Joker, the first one, because its cultish fan base told them how good it was, and they may have liked it and they may have not liked it, but the
Yeah.
important thing for a successful financial movie is the way they went and saw it,
Yes.
and they're
Yes, I
just not
mean
doing it with this one.
yes, and I think, what I'm hearing from a lot of people, and I've heard this movie have its defenders and people, I've seen quite a few people be like, I don't know why people hate this movie. It's not bad. Da, 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 da. But
Yeah,
generally,
which is
I've
fine.
heard, yes, but generally, I've heard from people who don't like the movie, who say it's the worst movie ever. They still compliment the musical numbers and say the musical numbers are
Right.
well done. So, considering everyone's saying this movie is a hot mess, but the musical numbers are well done, then yeah, it probably would have maybe benefited them
Mm.
to highlight that and focus in on that and share those aspects of the filmmaking, as opposed to the story that apparently just feels like a mess in comparison to the story we got in the first film.
Is the there's an area of discussion surrounding that first movie, or there was an area of discussion surrounding that first movie about it being very sort of uh, forgiving to dangerous people.
Mm,
Because if you understand kind of where I'm coming from, because
yeah.
we'll just haphazardly blame our our
Society.
crimes,
Society
our
created the Joker kind
oh
of
exactly.
mentality, yeah.
Yeah, we'll blame our crimes, blame our poor behavior, blame our kind of violent tendencies on the fact that, "Oh, everything's just a bit too much for me,"
Yes,
and
and nobody wants to help me. My
nobody
world
wants to
is not
help me.
giving me the help that I need, so it's not my fault, it's society's fault, kind of,
And
yeah.
there was this whole discussion on it of how far you wanna lean into, obviously, the significant kind of mental struggle of a character like Arthur in the Joker, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
very significant. And obviously, we don't want to, in the real world, condemn any anybody struggling that heavily
Mhm.
mentally, because that's not what it wants to do. It doesn't want to condemn that. It
No.
almost it wants to support that. I just think it didn't perfect the balance of supporting the genuinely mentally ill in the world,
Yeah.
as opposed to maybe making those people think they can then get away with doing horrendous things because of their mental state,
Yeah.
which is a very, very dangerous thing to start thinking. And I think some people confused that
Yeah.
balance in
Mhm.
the first movie, which is why perhaps certain people went and saw the movie, really, really gravitated towards the movie. Of course, there was people that gravitated towards the movie not for these reasons, for
Yeah.
completely genuine, completely understandable reasons. Look, it's a good movie. It is a good movie. That, you know,
Mhm.
absolutely, sure. But I do think there was a subset. I do really genuinely think there was a
Oh,
subsect, and
yeah.
I just don't.
100%.
And I think the conversation surrounding that put a lot of people off any Joker movies after they saw the movie originally, after they saw
Yeah.
the original movie and already made it successful because they paid to go and
To
see
go
the
see
movie,
Yeah.
that they're now going,
"Oh,
we
no.
don't
What was
we
this?"
don't want
Yeah.
to support that movie
Yeah.
anymore. We don't want to go and see that movie. So they're not going to go and see the second, which again pulls the financial figures down from
That's
that
very
side.
true. Yeah.
So it's the other movies that are coming out. It's the fact it's been put in a bad time when it's not a horror movie and people want to go and see Terrifier or The Substance or Smile,
E
or
Yeah.
families want to go and see The Wild
See
Robot.
Wild Robot, yeah.
Um, Maybe it's also you've got an image of Gotham there. What's the image of Gotham that everybody's talking about at the minute? It's in the Penguin.
Ah, very
It's
true.
the only
Mhm.
thing that people are talking, "Oh,
Yeah,
it's so good. Oh, we like that. We liked the Batman. We like what Matt Reeves is doing. We can't wait for more." I'm hearing nothing but stunning things about the Penguin. I haven't watched an episode of it
yes, I
yet, but
haven't
I
watched it
want
yet, but,
to.
yeah, I'm hearing it's very good. I mean, also the change of the characterization of Harley Quinn, who's a really beloved character. I mean,
Right? Yeah.
sh
Everybody loved
she
Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. What
exactly,
is
and it
Gaga's version?
yes, it's completely different, like, she's they've changed what she does, who she is, her motivations, all of that. So, um, yeah, I think that maybe disappointed people as well. And then also just the fact that maybe it wasn't made wholly clear to people that this was a musical. So,
Yeah.
or, the fact that they kind of didn't showcase that as much as they maybe could have. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of clear factors that definitely could have played into this film's failure. So, I just for, to make up my own mind generally, I still kind of want to see it just to see
Yeah.
what the issues were, while people are calling it this huge mess, the worst film of the year and this whole kind of thing.
I never
I'm
trust that.
yes, yes, I always, wanna trust my own opinion while, people I think I generally trust and usually agree with on things, I might be more, uh
Mm.
keen to their take on something, but I still, need to see it for myself to really judge if something is, really bad, and I try like, I think I used to quite a bit, say, "Oh, most people are saying it's terrible, so I'm not gonna see it." But I have since tried to kind of be like, "No, if I wanna see it and see for myself, I'm gonna see it and see for
Yeah,
myself. I'm not gonna trust
it's tough to
that kind
be
of
like
word." Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But it's smart to be like that. I like to be like that myself, and I go to the cinema way less than you do to watch
yeah.
new movies. Um, and I do like to be like that. I I don't think I was ever massively interested in this second
Me
movie
either. Me
anyway.
either. I wasn't one of those in that camp of people who were obsessed with the first one and thought it was this brilliant thing. It was definitely one of those movies that I could have been perfectly content seeing one time and never really needing to see again. Like, it was
I
an
mean, it
interesting
won him. it won him the Best Actor Oscar. Why is the sequel to it doing this badly?
Yeah.
Everything
A
about that first movie
billion-dollar film, yeah.
everything about that first movie just hit on all successful areas. It was just like it could do no wrong
Yeah.
in
It's
success
just very
categories,
strange, yeah, that whatever they chose to
awards,
do in this one.
finance,
Yeah.
people, fan base,
Mhm.
quality. Everything was just right at the
Firing,
tippy
yes,
tippy
just
top.
had an interesting thing to say, an interesting, fresh take, a very kind of isolated, I think, it coming out also in the midst of franchises and all these things. This was just an
Mm,
isolated story of a familiar character. So I think
yeah.
that drew people in as well because they were kind of maybe on a little bit of a burnout and they didn't wanna have to follow this whole kind of trajectory of a character. This is just an isolated alternate version that stands on its own. And so, I think people saw it as something that stood on its own. So when they're now are trying to build a universe around it with the sequel,
Yeah.
that kind of takes away the individual, isolated, kind of cool one-off story of the first film too. I
I
think maybe
I
that something like that played into it, maybe?
I I really don't think that can be understated. I think that is so significant in why this isn't doing as well,
Yeah.
because it was people did see it as something standalone and totally separate, and it's no longer that. The
Yeah.
best thing they could have done, the best thing Todd Phillips could have done, take another Batman villain.
Oh, yeah,
Take another
and then
Batman
just
villain.
build your universe in, maybe this loose connection that it takes place in the same Gotham, but you're telling these isolated individual stories that aren't connected in any other way
In
other
any
than the
way.
fact in another way that it takes place in Gotham. Like, that's it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even have to see Arthur Penn.
Yes, it doesn't
Not
even have to
Arthur
be
Penn.
set in the same time.
Arthur Penn, he's the director of Bonnie and Clyde, not Arthur Penn. What's his name?
Fleck.
Um,
Fleck.
Arthur Fleck. Arthur Penn.
Arthur
What am
Penn,
I
I'm like, "Who's
talking
that?"
about?
But yeah, it doesn't even need
Literally,
to be
Arthur Penn's the director of Bonnie and Clyde. That's who Arthur Penn is.
well,
Um,
hey, we got a bit of a Bonnie and Clyde vibe, I'm assuming, with these
oh,
Joker and
oh
Harley,
well,
I'm
yeah,
assuming.
right.
Yeah.
But you don't even need to see Arthur Fleck in a separate
Yeah, it doesn't
Todd
even need to be
Phillips
set in the same
Batman villain.
time. Because what? This is, like, set 70s, 80s.
Well,
So,
exactly,
have
yeah.
it in the 90s or modern day or whatever, and he could just build his universe on just these individual takes on the rogues gallery, because I think Batman is a character who has the most interesting, complex, iconic rogues gallery out there. Had he done
Absolutely.
this really cool, like Lee Winnell, I would love to see him just
Mm,
do, every Universal monster story in his kind of unique, grounded
yeah,
take, so
totally
we're getting
separate.
two from him so far, and, they're separate, they're their own thing, but it has the same kind of flavor because it's the same director. So, wouldn't it have been this cool thing if he had done the same thing and Todd Phillips could have, marqueed himself as the, rogues gallery storyteller and just telling these
Yeah,
different individual stories that are kind of their own thing. That would have
but
been cool, but that's not what we got. So,
it's not what we got, and like what we said before, there's another very successful Batman villain currently on
killing it.
television
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
you know, is totally his own story.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, you've got, the Falcones and what have you in that as well and all
Yeah.
that, but it is a show called The Penguin,
Yes.
and it's going up ultimately in people's Gotham-based minds against
Yes, and it's
Joker.
actually really good, and it feels like something like people are saying feels very much like something like The Sopranos or something. So to, like,
Mm,
focus on a character in a universe, you're getting that strong IP connection to bring in viewers, but you're wholly making it its own thing and making it
and
interesting, and it's not dependent on kind of its IP big name to drive it. It just will bring people in, and then it can prove to you what it's about.
let's also remember just how great the Gotham in the Batman is.
Yeah.
as a world, as a gloomy, horrible place.
Yeah.
The rainiest possible place. That was because
Yes.
a lot of it was filmed in Scotland, where it's always raining.
Rainy and miserable.
Um, but it was a world that was really, really crafted to that particular aesthetic,
Yeah.
and it just seems like the Penguin is furthering that so well while being totally its own thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I haven't seen it be said that there's any massive references to Bruce Wayne or to anything that happened in the Batman movie or anything like that.
Yeah.
I it seems to me, again, this is me not having watched it, so don't take me seriously at all. But it's just what I've heard.
Yeah.
It seems very, very on its own, and that is more what people want now. I think from this kind of product, from this kind of movie show piece of media, they want it because the general population is becoming too tired
Yeah.
of the need to have hours and hours and frankly weeks worth of context if you continually watch something Marvel, you know, to understand most of what's going on in
Yeah.
a new piece of media, and it doesn't require that.
Yeah.
Neither does Joker 2, to be fair. It requires one movie, which is perfectly fine because it's a sequel and you're allowed sequels,
Yeah.
obviously. But should there be a sequel to a movie that had its success based on the fact, primarily, that it was totally standalone?
Yeah.
What's the point in having a sequel to that?
Exactly.
What made people want to go? It's almost as though they don't realize what made people want to go and watch it.
Yeah, they forgot, I guess, that that was kind of
And
a driving factor.
they've just gone $1.2 billion. We need to make another one. And Todd Phillips has probably gone, I didn't really want to do that.
Yes, and you
Um,
probably could have made it with all of that money. Like, you
but
probably
yeah,
could have done a really interesting stripped down thing with less money. Yeah, but
but thanks for all the money. Obviously, I'll make it, and I'm making money from it anyway.
yeah,
You
like, I
know,
already got my bag kinda thing.
he's
Yeah.
not losing money, is he?
Mm-mm.
Joaquin Phoenix isn't losing money. Gaga's not losing money. Nobody in it's losing money. Warner's losing money because Warner are idiots.
Yep.
Obviously, Warner are idiots. I mean, the Warners themselves are rolling in the graves at what's going on at
Oh,
Warner.
yes, yeah, canceling movies for tax write-offs and all kinds of nonsense.
Nonsense. But
Yeah.
it's such an interesting thing to think about. Why did Joker 2 financially fail? A mix of all those things.
Yeah,
An
perhaps.
unfortunate mix of all those things. It also, I don't think, can be understated. Luck plays a part because you don't know what other studios are going to release at certain times.
Yeah.
You don't know as a movie studio, as a distributor. You
Mhm.
don't know that. You've just kind of got to bank on it.
Yeah,
Hope
and hope.
it works and do as much as you can.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, if it's October, you're gonna come up against horror movies.
Horror, yes, and horrors are probably gonna hit because that's what people are gonna go see. So,
Yeah, I mean, you're lucky the horror movies weren't bigger. Like, imagine if this had all come out when the new Halloween movies were,
oh, yeah.
a thing, because even
Mhm.
Halloween Ends made a lot of money.
Yes.
I mean, very few people liked the movie, but it made a lot of
Yeah,
money.
but it made a lot of money, yeah, people went to see it, yeah.
Or God forbid, a Conjuring universe movie or something like that.
Yeah.
It would have made nothing because everybody would have gone and seen Annabelle 17, The Resurrection of Belle, you know,
Yeah.
The Nun 7. We are three nuns now.
The Nun 7. Oh my
or
god.
however many Conjuring movies there are now. Although I think they're finishing the Conjuring movies, aren't they? I think there's going to be a
I
fourth
think there's
main
yeah, I
one, and
think
then
there's
it's
one
done,
more. Yeah.
which is good. I like that
Yeah, they
it's
haven't been
just been
bad.
like
Yeah.
shoof there.
Yes.
Generally, all the Conjuring world has been predominantly positive, which is good.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a couple dudders in
There's
there.
a couple of yeah, there is, yeah,
Yes,
there
I
is.
think people don't like the first Annabelle film, and they don't like the La Llorona. Those are kind of the 2 I've heard
Yeah,
that are
that's right. I
which
forgot
I
about
haven't
that
seen
one.
either of those. Yeah. Yeah,
I did
which
forget about
tells
that
which
one.
says everything. You just completely forgot about
Yeah. But no, it's interesting.
that.
It's an
Mhm.
interesting thing to think about. As we
Yeah.
move into fun and games, I think, though, Jeannine, to close out today's
Yeah.
show. Now,
You have some quizzes, some fun quizzes
we
for you.
do, we do. I have a horror quiz for you because
Okay.
obviously it's spooky season, and we'll be
Yes.
doing this. And I think next episode will be it will be much closer to Halloween itself,
Yes.
won't it? So
Mhm.
we might have a Halloween specific quiz for
No.
next episode, I
Okay.
think, for you. But it is a horror movie quiz. It actually comes from the Manchester Evening News, so I've localed it to
Oh,
myself,
okay.
although it has nothing to do with the city at all. And
Okay.
it's just a horror movie quiz. It just happens to be what the Manchester Evening News have created.
Okay.
Um, but what do you have for me? You will be going first, of course.
Yes, I have a quiz for you to tell you, which iconic clown are you?
Ah, like
So
the witch one.
yes, so whether it be,
Yes.
maybe TV clowns, movie clowns, just media clowns in general, BuzzFeed quiz about which iconic clown are you?
Bobo the clown. Is that his name?
And it's killer clown, so these are evil
Killer
people.
clowns.
Yes.
I hope it's not like the actual real life killer clown. I hope he's
Yeah.
not involved.
I don't know, well, we'll see depending on how you answer these questions, but
Oh,
I'm
now
going
I'm
first,
scared.
so we'll
Now
see.
I'm scared to publish anything that might liken me to serial killers. Um, yes, so we have a horror quiz. I think it's
Okay,
10 questions.
okay,
I think you should be getting a
okay,
straight score. I played this myself earlier,
okay, okay.
and I'd be surprised if you don't. Question number 1: what was the surname of Damien in The Omen?
Oh. Oh my gosh, we were just talking about it.
What is the surname? And it's not Satan.
I know. Damien Demon Child.
It's not Antichrist.
Yeah. I don't think I ever really thought about it. So yeah, no, I don't
Oh,
remember. I don't remember.
it's Thorn.
Ah, yes.
Thorn.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Uh, okay, I assume this will be coming up on yours for me as well. What is the name of the clown in It?
Oh, Pennywise, the
Yes,
dancing
yes.
clown.
Dancing clown. Which comedy horror movie takes place on Christmas Eve in a small town called Kingston Falls?
What?
There is multiple choice if you need it, but it would be obvious.
Horror movie set on
Comedy
Christmas.
horror movie.
Oh,
Comedy horror
comedy.
movie takes place on Christmas Eve in a small town called Kingston Falls. Just think Christmas comedy horror movie.
Christmas comedy horror.
Think really well known Christmas comedy horror.
Christmas
Really beloved
Eve.
movie.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Seriously?
Yeah.
What's
And
the name of it?
we even did a watch along
We did?
on this movie. It's Christmas horror movie.
Yes. We did a
I mean,
watch along?
maybe it's a cleverly worded question that it gives you
Maybe.
like town name rather
Yes,
than
but I
anything
don't
else.
yeah, but I don't remember. I don't that town doesn't sound familiar to me.
Think things about that big. Little things about that big. They run around a lot.
Oh, Gremlins.
Gremlins. Yes, it is
Yes, we
Gremlin.
did. It was very fun
It is
watch
Gremlin.
along with your father.
Echo and the Bunnymen's cover of People Are Strange appears on the soundtrack to what 80s horror comedy?
That's a
Comedy?
horror yes, I'm like, The Lost
Comedy?
Boys.
No,
That, like
it's a comedy movie. It is The Lost Boys, yes, of course. In which slasher movie does Jason Voorhees first appear as the killer?
Friday the 13th part 2?
Classic trick question there. Yeah.
Yes. As a
Scream,
Scream fan, I
noticeably in Scream.
yes.
You will never ever get that wrong, thanks to Scream.
No. Thank you, Scream.
Um, again, a horror comedy. In which horror comedy musical does Steve Martin appear as a mad dentist?
Oh.
Yes, we
Little
like
Shop of
this.
Horrors, yeah.
It is, yes. We like Little Shop of Horrors. Good. In which movie was the inhuman threat known behind the scenes as Bruce?
Oh, Jaws.
Jaws, yes. The shark, obviously.
Mhm.
Margot Kidder and James Brolin played the couple at the centre of what horror movie?
Amityville
It is
Horror.
the Amityville Horror, yes. Oh, this is based. I might as well not even bother asking you this one. It's not a Scream question, by the way.
Well, okay.
Winston Zeddemore is the final recruit to which team?
Ghostbusters! My favorite.
Oh, a nice question. Yul Brynner plays a malfunctioning robot cowboy in which 70s horror movie? Horror movie?
Yeah, Westworld.
Sci-fi.
I'd say it gets I can think it gets kind of horror by the end when he's
Yeah,
Terminatoring around with this
I
little
guess so. I
cool
guess so.
strut.
And there we go. That
Okay.
is your
Yeah, it
quiz.
stumped me a little bit. I like
Just a
that.
couple. Just a
Good
couple.
questions. Yeah, I had to think about it a little bit. All right, so we have a BuzzFeed quiz. Which iconic killer clown are you? Spend a day at the carnival to find out.
What type of carnival? Is it one of those
All right.
horrible
I don't
ones that
know. Just
like
that's what it
abuse
says.
animals and things?
I hope not.
Is it
Okay.
Dumbo?
First, pick a
Yes.
ride to go on. The Ferris
Mm.
wheel, the carousel, the scrambler, or the swings.
The Ferris wheel, the what? The swing.
Carousel.
Oh, the
The s-
scrambler. I like a scrambler.
scrambler. Okay, so
Goes like
scrambler.
yeah, I like
That's
goes like that.
okay. All
Actually, it's
right.
one of the few flat rides I actually quite enjoy because
Okay.
usually I just end up wanting to vomit.
Pick a pick a food to snack on. Popcorn, cotton candy, corn dog, or caramel apple.
Oh God, none of them. Um, Popcorn, cotton candy, caramel apple, or what?
Corn do
I'll have
you
a
know what
hot
a
dog.
corn dog is?
I know. Yeah, I know what a call. I'll have a hot dog, but I guess popcorn out of them. To be
Okay,
honest, yeah.
okay. Choose a game to play. Whack-a-mole,
Oh,
beanbag toss, bobbing for apples, or balloon pop.
balloon pop. I mean, oh, is that throw the dart at the balloon? I assume.
Yes. That sounds
I don't
that's
mind any of those games. To be fair,
I mean, balloon pop's the most
whack a
violent one.
mole, whack a
Oh,
mole.
yeah, well, whack-a-mole's pretty violent. Um, what are you doing next? A haunted house, watching live music, more rides, or a fun house?
Fun house. I like fun houses.
Okay. Pick something to eat for lunch. Fried chicken, turkey leg, a pretzel, or a chili dog.
I know what one of these clowns is going to be. And I'm probably going to get him now, aren't I? Because I've said funhouse as well. Fried chicken, what?
A turkey leg, a pretzel, or a chili dog.
Pretzels. I like pretzels.
Of course, because it's bread. Obsessed with bread.
So I'm not going to get who I was thinking of now because I know he's got a fried chicken shop. That's success.
Who are you going to the carnival with? My family, my friends, my coworkers, no one.
No one. No,
Misery.
Friends. I'll go Friends.
Okay.
I can't go with nobody. That's a bit sad, isn't it?
A little bit. How do you wrap up the night? Watching fireworks, a pleasant stroll, more rides, or leaving
Mm.
early?
More rides. I don't like fireworks too loud.
Okay. Oh, that is a scary picture. And again, it's somebody you're not gonna know, so you're gonna be annoyed.
Is it definitely somebody I'm not gonna know?
Yes.
Who is it?
You're Twisty from American Horror Story. You're dark and
No,
terrifying,
okay.
but you've had a tough life and don't always have that bad of intentions. You're a bit in denial of the fact you're more scary than fun, but who isn't? And for our
Okay, fair. Well, let's have a look at
video
the.
watchers,
Oh,
this is Twisty the clown.
I have seen that particular clown in images. Yes, fair enough. I'll be him.
Yes.
I'll be him. I didn't get Captain Spaulding, which I thought I might get
Ah,
with
yeah.
the go to the rides and eat fried
Oh,
chicken.
was that
What's it
Sid
called?
Haig?
Sid Haig from Rob Zombie's movies.
Yeah.
Um, Captain Spaulding's fried chicken slash gas station slash tourist trap slash
Yes.
theme park or whatever he has.
Yeah. So you should
Um,
have said fried chicken. You would probably got that one.
no, but I didn't want to have him because he's weird. Uh,
Okay, well, you just
okay,
got Twisty, so
Twisty from American Horror
congratulations.
Story. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nice to know that I wasn't just a plain obvious, Pennywise or
Yeah,
anything like that. So that's good, I
yeah.
suppose. There we go for this episode of Monday Madness. Another fun time today,
Yeah.
or interesting discussions to be had on
Mhm.
this episode. Of course, it is not the only thing we have on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed, nor is it the only thing on the YouTube channel either. Subscribe, ding your notification bells on the YouTube channel, of course, if you are watching today. If you are not and you are listening, we love you very, very much. Please subscribe
Me too.
to this podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts on all major platforms. For this show, for Morgan Hasn't Seen every Wednesday, for the main show, It's a Wonderful Podcast every Friday. It's all horror based over there as well, of course. It's October. Why wouldn't it be? And if you want to support us on Patreon or donate in any way, there are links in the description to do that. We would love you very, very much forever and ever and ever, much like the twins in The Shining. Although they don't love you forever, they want you to play with them forever.
Forever
Don't they?
and ever
They don't.
and
They,
ever.
they don't love you. They actually hate you and probably want you dead.
Probably.
They're dead themselves. It's all very confusing. Don't think too
Yeah,
hard
don't think
about
about
it.
it.
It's all very confusing. What else? What else have we got going on? Nothing else really. The social medias. You can find us, of course, on the app formerly known as Twitter. And It's a Wonderful One. Find me on there at the Purple Dot with a 3 instead of the E and the because Jeannine.
3 is a magic number.
On Instagram and TikTok at the Purple Dom. All your clowny stuff is where.
You can find me at Jeannine__ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search It's Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, j9design.bigcartel.com.
Well, there we go indeed. There is only one thing left to do, I think, Jeannine. I mean, we've had Norman Bates today. You could do an impression of Norman Bates. Any such killer clown, the Joker.
I
I
can't
mean,
do any of
anything.
those.
A particular version of the Joker, not Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, as it's just kind of Joaquin Phoenix's voice. There's nothing particularly special about it. Go. You could go pure Joker. You could go a nice animated pure Joker of just pure Jokeriness.
3. 2. 1.
I feel like that was Cesar Romero's Joker from the 60s show, which was accurate. It was silly enough. Yes, very good. Yes. Bye.